The day no one remembered, Keanu Reeves woke up before the sun rose. The morning light hadn't touched the curtains yet. Outside, the sky was still a soft gray, the kind that made everything feel slow. Quiet. He sat on the edge of the bed, looking down at his hands like they belonged to someone else. There was no cake waiting downstairs, no balloons, no phone buzzing with wishes. He didn't expect any of that. Not anymore. He had learned to stop counting birthdays after a while, not because he didn't care, but because too many of them had passed in silence, the kind of silence that didn't hurt, but also didn't heal. He made his way to the small kitchen in his home just outside Los Angeles. It was simple. No staff, no chaos. Just a kettle, a pan, and a quiet radio he kept tuned to a classical station that rarely spoke. He boiled water for tea, not coffee. Coffee felt too loud that day. He wanted something softer. As he waited for the water to heat, he glanced at the small calendar stuck to the fridge. The date was there, in plain numbers. Number marks. No reminders. Just a silent fact printed in black and white. August 5. He stared at it for a long time, then turned away. Outside, the world moved like any other day. Cars rushed past. People scrolled through their phones. No one paused to think about the man who had once shaped decades of cinema, who had given pieces of his soul to characters that helped strangers survive their darkest nights. But today, he was just a man standing alone in his kitchen, a man who once gave everything and never asked for anything in return. By noon, Keanu was on set. Crew moved around, with practiced rhythm, adjusting lights, checking scripts, preparing the next scene. No one said anything about his birthday. They probably didn't know. Or maybe they did and thought he didn't want attention. Either way, the silence stayed. He didn't mind. Not really. Until Armas showed up. She walked onto the set quietly, wearing sunglasses and a denim jacket. Her hair was tied back. Loosely, she wasn't scheduled to shoot that day. At least that's what the assistant director had said the day before. Keanu noticed her right away. She didn't bring energy like others did. She brought something different. Calm. Like a breeze before the rain. She didn't rush toward him, didn't shout across the room. Just walked over slowly and stopped a few feet from him. He looked at her, tried to smile. "You weren't supposed to be here today," he said, gently. Anna took off her sunglasses. "I know," she replied. He raised an eyebrow, curious, but she didn't explain. Instead, she handed him a small paper bag. Nothing fancy, just folded neatly. At the top, inside was a single green tea sachet and a tiny ceramic turtle. Its shell was painted by hand, a little chipped at the edge. Keanu held it carefully, like it was something precious. "What's this for?" he asked. "It's your birthday," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. He didn't answer, not right away, because something inside him paused, not just his voice, something deeper. "I didn't think anyone knew," he finally said. "I didn't either, till yesterday. Someone from wardrobe mentioned it. They said you never talk about it." Keanu looked down at the turtle again. It was small, quiet, almost invisible in his hand. But it felt like the loudest thing in the room. Anna sat down on the edge of a nearby crate and pulled out a thermos. She poured hot water into a cup, then opened the paper bag and placed the tea sachet inside. The steam rose slowly. "I didn't bring cake," she said, almost shyly, "or anything loud. Out. Just this." He took the cup from her. Their fingers touched for a second. It felt like someone turned the world down a little more, not off, just softer. "Thank you," he said, barely above a whisper. "You want to sit outside for a bit?" she asked. He nodded. They stepped outside together. The air was warm, kind that wraps around you gently without pressure. They sat on the steps behind the soundstage. No one followed. No one noticed. Keanu took a sip of the tea. It wasn't the best he ever had, but it didn't matter, because it came from someone who remembered. "You know," Anna said after a long pause, "when I was a kid, birthdays used to scare me." "Scare you?" he asked. Double quotes? "Yeah. They made me feel like time was chasing me. Like every candle meant I was supposed to be more something. Smarter, stronger, happier. And I never felt like I was catching up. He looked at her, not with surprise, but with understanding. I get that, he said. I used to think every birthday was a reminder of what I'd lost. And now I think it's just a quiet mark. Like a page turned in a book, not good or bad. It's just part of the story. Anna smiled softly. That's beautiful. That's survival, he said. They sat there in silence. Not awkward, not heavy. It's just still. And then something strange happened. Someone from the crew came outside holding a cupcake. One single candle. No song. Just a nod, Anna told me, the crew member said. I figured you might not want a big thing, but happy birthday, man. Keanu looked at the cupcake, then at Anna. You told him? Just him, she said. I thought you deserved at least one flame. He stared at the candle, unlit, waiting. You want to blow it out? She asked. He nodded. She lit it with a small lighter from her pocket. And for the first time in years, Keanu made a wish. A real one. He didn't say it out loud. But when he blew out the candle, something inside him lifted. Not completely, but enough to notice. The tea cooled in his hand. The ceramic turtle rested beside him, and beside that, Anna, still quiet. I'm still present. It wasn't the loudest birthday, but maybe it was the most honest one he'd had in years. The weight of quiet things. Keanu Reeves didn't go home right after rap that day. He usually did. No goodbyes, no lingering. It's just a nod to the crew and a quiet walk to his car. But something about that moment on the studio steps him, Anna. The tea, the little turtle, and the candle stayed with him like a soft echo. It followed him through the hallway, through the fading evening light, through the empty trailer where his name sat taped to the door. Inside, the air was still. Too still. And the gift sat in his jacket pocket like it was alive. Not heavy, but present. He reached into his coat and pulled out the small ceramic turtle. It had a chipped shell and uneven paint, but it was warm from his body heat. And for some reason, he didn't set it down. Instead, placed it on the small table beside the script pages and the folded chair where he usually sat alone between takes. Then he poured himself water from the trailer sink and sat back. Not reading, not scrolling his phone, just sitting. He couldn't remember the last time someone gave him something that wasn't tied to promotion, schedule, or fame. Something small, something still. Anna didn't make a speech, didn't post a story she just noticed. And now, something about that noticing made him feel like he hadn't been forgotten even, if just for one quiet hour. He closed his eyes for a moment. But the knock on the trailer door came quickly, soft. 2 times, then nothing. He opened the door, slowly, expecting maybe a crew member who forgot something, but it was her again. Anna stood there with a small paper bag, different from the one earlier. She looked hesitant. I wasn't sure if I should come back, she said. You're here, he replied. I had something else. Didn't want to give it in front of anyone. She stepped inside, carefully. Like entering someone's memory, Keanu sat back. Down and nodded for her to do the same. She handed him the second bag. What is it? He asked, not opening it yet. You'll think it's silly. I don't think much of anything is silly these days. He opened the bag slowly. Inside was a folded sheet of paper, old slightly crinkled, a page from a book, not torn carefully removed. The edge is clean. He lifted it gently and read the words printed at the top. You're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. He blinked once. Slowly. This is from a book I read back when I was trying to figure out who I was. I tore it out, kept it for years. Then I thought, maybe it's not mine to keep anymore. Keanu didn't speak. Not because he didn't have words, but because the words he had didn't seem worthy of what she'd just given him. Anna leaned back in the chair and crossed her arms gently. You know, she said, people talk about you like you're made of stone, like nothing touches you, like you just exist perfectly. He glanced over, amused. Is that what they say? It's what they believe. But I've seen you when no one's looking. When you think no one notices, you pick up trash off the set. You hold doors longer than you need to. You thank the guy who holds the boom mic every morning. You actually see him. Keanu shifted in his seat. Shouldn't everyone be seen? He asked. They should, but not everyone sees. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full. She took a breath. I used to think birthdays were supposed to be big, loud, full of people.
Wow.
But maybe they're just meant to remind us of who we are when everything else falls away. He looked down at the page again. Do you want it back? No, she said. It's yours now. Maybe it'll remind you too. He nodded, slowly, then set the paper beside the turtle on the table. Do you want to take a walk? He asked. Now, yeah, not far. Just somewhere without lights. Anna smiled. I'd like that. They left the trailer and walked toward the back lot. Most of the crew had cleared out. The sun had slipped behind the buildings, and the sky was that quiet blue-gray where day fades into night without a clear line. It felt like the perfect in-between. They didn't talk much, just walked side by side, past forgotten props, past empty chairs, past a row of trailers with names covered in tape. When they reached the far edge of the lot, they found an old bench, probably meant for extras or background actors. It creaked. When they sat, Kiana said after a long pause. The last birthday I really remember was with my sister. Your younger sister? Yeah, she made a pancake cake. Like, literally, just a stack of pancakes with strawberries on top. She said it was all she could afford. I told her it was the best cake I ever had. Anna smiled. Was it? Still is? They sat there while night fell around them, and for a moment, Kiana felt like the world had turned down its noise just for him. A few minutes later, Anna's phone buzzed. She didn't check it. Do you need to go? He asked. Not yet. They sat a little. Longer, Keanu leaned back and looked at the stars starting to show. Thank you for coming back, he said. I didn't want you to be alone tonight, she replied. I'm usually alone, not tonight. He turned to look at her. I don't know why this means so much, he admitted. Maybe because it's simple. Maybe because it's quiet. He nodded. Or maybe because someone showed up when no one else did. She didn't answer. Didn't have to, because he knew she understood. And as they sat there in the dark, a light breeze passed through the lot. Gentle, honest, like a soft reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments are the quiet ones. The ones that ask for nothing but give everything. The story behind the silence. Next morning, Keanu Reeves woke before sunrise again, but something was different. There was a weight on the table by the window, not heavy, just noticeable enough to draw his eyes. The ceramic turtle sat where he had left it. Beside it was the folded page Anna had given him. The words now burned into his mind like quiet fire. You're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. He stared at the page for a long while, not reading it again, just feeling it, like somehow those words held something more than comfort. They felt like permission. Permission to be tired. Permission to still be healing. Permission to still be figuring things out even now. His birthday was over. The world had already moved on, but something inside him hadn't. He picked up the turtle and placed it in his jacket pocket again. Not out of habit, but because it felt right, like it belonged with him now. Small reminder that someone saw him when he didn't ask to be seen. When he arrived on set, he kept his head low, not out of sadness, just out of a strange kind of peace. The kind that comes after a storm you didn't even know you were standing in. The crew greeted him with quiet nods. No mention of the day before, no questions. And he liked it that way, but there was one face missing. Anna, she wasn't there. Not on set, not in the trailers. Not by the coffee table where she sometimes stood. Sipping black tea and drawing sketches in the corner of her script, he tried not to think about it. She had her scenes scheduled later in the week. Maybe she was just resting. Maybe she didn't want anything more to do with the quiet she had stepped into yesterday. But by noon, he found himself checking his phone, and then again at 2, finally after wrap. He walked to the edge of the studio lot where her car was usually parked. It wasn't. There still, he stood there for a moment, waiting, not sure why. And then he heard a voice, looking for me. He turned. Anna stood there in jeans and a soft cotton sweater, her hair tied loosely, no makeup, no camera-ready mask, just her. "I wasn't sure if you'd come today," he said. "I wasn't sure either." He looked at her, studying something in her face. Something quieter than yesterday. Something ... different. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. She walked closer and sat on the low brick wall near the lot's exit. "I didn't sleep well last night," she said. "Too many thoughts, too many memories." "About what?" "About why I gave you that page." Keanu tilted his head slightly, curious. "I thought it was just a gift." "It was. But it wasn't just for you." He waited. Anna looked down at her hands, then back. Up at him. "I had someone once. A friend. He gave me that book during a time when I felt lost. I didn't even know how to speak for myself then. I just moved. New language, new city, new pressure. Everything felt bigger than me. I didn't think I'd last." She paused, breathed. "And then he gave me that book, told me to read just one page a night, and I did, night after night, till I reached that one, and I stopped because it made me cry, and because it made me hope." Keanu sat down beside her. "What happened to him?" "He died. 6 months later, car crash. Was younger. Then me." She blinked, steady but full. "I've kept that page ever since. As a reminder. And yesterday, when I saw you sitting there alone, something told me it was time to pass it on." Keanu didn't speak, not out of silence, but respect. Anna turned to face him fully. "You always give so much," she said to everyone, to strangers, to your work, "but you never ask for anything back. And maybe you don't need anything, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve it." He felt something shift inside. "You gave me more than a gift yesterday," he said. "You reminded me that ... Maybe it's okay to still be healing?" Anna smiled. Not wide, not bright, just enough. "We all are," she said. They sat there as the afternoon softened into early evening. A quiet settled between them. It's not heavy this time, but shared. Then she reached into her pocket and handed him something else. A photo, old, black and white. 2 children sitting on a cracked step in Havana. A girl and a boy. Holding hands. Barefoot. Smiling like they didn't know the world could hurt them yet. "Who are they?" he asked. "Me and my brother." He looked at the picture longer. "I didn't know you had a brother." "I don't know anymore." He didn't ask how. Didn't need to. "That photo is the only one I have left," she said. "I scanned it years ago. Made a copy. You can keep this one if you want. Not because it's important, but because it reminds me of who I used to be before everything got loud." Keanu held the Anite Nana photo carefully. "Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for letting me." They stood slowly, neither in a hurry to leave. Both carrying something invisible between them now. Not romance. Not obligation. Just something rare. Something honest. "Do you want to meet tomorrow?" she asked. "For tea? For silence?" He smiled. Not a public smile, not the one cameras chase, but a real one. Worn, quiet, and warm. "I'd like that." Just like that, they parted. No promises. No wait. Just the knowledge that someone out there knew the story behind the silence. Chose to stay. What stayed behind the next morning arrived gently. Sunlight crept into Keanu's home like it was being careful not to wake anything that needed rest. The city outside had already started to move cars, horns, footsteps, but inside the world was still soft. Keanu sat on the couch with the photo Anna gave him resting on his lap. Beside it was the small turtle and the folded page with those same words he kept repeating in his head. "You're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time." He whispered it under his breath now. Not like a prayer. More like a reminder. He had never cared much for birthdays. But this one had left something behind. Not just memories. Something living. Something quiet that followed him even now. It was strange. How a single gesture, one small act, could echo louder than all the noise. He had heard in years. Anna had said she wanted to meet again, for tea, for silence. He didn't know what that meant, not exactly. But he knew he wanted it, and that was enough. He made his way to the studio even though he wasn't scheduled to film. He just felt like being there, not for work, not for purpose, just to exist in a place where something had changed. When he stepped onto the back lot, the same bench they had sat on 2 nights ago was waiting, empty, sunlit, forgotten by everyone except him. But Anna wasn't there yet, so he waited. And while he waited, he did something unusual. He took out his phone and typed a message. "Thank you again. Yesterday meant something to me, more than I can explain," he had sent. And then he waited again. A few minutes passed. Then his phone buzzed. "I'm already here. I just wanted to see if you'd wait without knowing." He looked up, and there. She was not dressed up, not trying to impress. Just herself, holding 2 takeaway cups and wearing a quiet smile. He stood. "You tested me," he said softly. "Only a little. And you passed." They sat on the bench again, exactly like before. She handed him one of the cups. This time, the tea was jasmine. It smelled like peace, she said. He sipped it. "It tastes like memory." They sat in silence for a long moment. People walked by in the distance. A prop truck moved slowly across the lot. But none of it touched the stillness between them. Anna finally spoke. "I've been thinking a lot since your birthday." "About what?" "About what we leave behind. Not the roles, not the interviews, not the things people write, but the real stuff. Stuff no one sees. The moments that don't get captured." Keanu nodded slowly. "The in-between," he said. "Yes," she replied. "The things we never post. The ones we don't even talk about." She pulled something from her bag and handed it to him. A notebook, small, leather-bound, old. "What's this?" "From years ago. Before anyone knew my name. I used to write things in here when I didn't have anyone to talk to." He held it like it was something fragile. "I can't take this." "You can," she said. "Because maybe it's time someone else holds what I used to carry alone." He opened to the first page. It wasn't poetry or polished lines. Just pieces of a heart spilled over time. "I'm tired of pretending, but I don't know who to be without. The act. I wish someone would ask how I really am and wait long enough to hear the truth. Today I smiled and it felt like lying, but no one noticed, so I kept doing it." Keanu closed the notebook gently. "You wrote these?" "Yes. When I was 19, when the world felt too loud and I felt too invisible." He looked at her, not like she was a celebrity. Not like she was someone people chased through flashing cameras. He looked at her like she was real, raw, and incredibly brave. "Thank you for this," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "I trust you," she replied. The words were simple. Struck something deep inside him, because trust wasn't something he received, often not without conditions. Not without someone wanting something in return. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Anything." "Why me?" Anna tilted her head. "What do you mean? Why did you choose me to give all this to?" "The tea, the turtle, the quote, the photo. Now the notebook. Why not someone closer to you? Someone you've known longer?" She looked at him for a moment, then down at her cup. "Because I've watched you," she said. "I don't mean on screen. I mean off. The way you treat people, the way you listen, carry things quietly. And I think maybe you needed someone to carry a little for you this time." He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. She placed her cup down and stood. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "Just wanted you to know that you're not alone in the in-between." Then she walked away. Not out of anger, not out of drama. Just out of quiet purpose. Keanu sat there long after she left, holding the notebook, the photo, the folded page, all pieces of someone else's silence. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a ghost moving through a world that had forgotten him. He felt held, and maybe that was what he had been missing all along. A voice in the quiet. Keanu Reeves sat in the back of his trailer later that night, the leather notebook resting on the small table beside him. He hadn't opened it again since Anna handed it over, not because he didn't want to, but because something inside him said it deserved to be read slowly, like a song you don't want to rush. The kind that breaks you in the best way. The studio had gone quiet. Most of the trailers were dark, but he wasn't tired yet. It's not in the body, only in the heart. And this time, the tiredness didn't feel heavy. It felt human. He ran his thumb along the notebook's edge. It still surprised him. Now a birthday that began in silence had become one of the loudest days of his life, not in sound, but in meaning. Anna had brought him tea, a turtle, a quote, a photo, her past, her pain. Trust in now, her words. He opened the notebook again. This time, he didn't stop at the first few entries. He read deeper. And what he found inside wasn't just about her, it was about everyone who had ever been quiet in a loud room. Everyone who had ever smiled when they were breaking. Everyone who had ever hoped someone might notice without being asked. I want to be loved, but not for my image. Just not for the girl in the dress or the name on the poster. Just me, even if I'm messy, even if I'm not enough. Silence is scary, but sometimes it's the only place that feels real. I watched someone cry on set today. No one saw them but me. I didn't say anything. I should have. He closed the book slowly. Not because he was finished, but because he felt something building inside. Not sadness, not joy. Something more fragile, gratitude, and something else. Something more unfamiliar, a desire to give something back. He reached for a pen and a piece of plain paper, then paused, thought, then finally began to write. The words didn't come easily at first, but once they started, they didn't stop. 2. The one who gave me silence when I needed it most, he didn't know where the letter would go, or if he'd even give it to her. But writing it made him feel like maybe he had something to offer in return. Something real, the next day. Keanu showed up to set early not because he had scenes, but because he wanted to be there when Anna arrived, when she stepped onto the lot. Wearing a soft brown coat and a loose scarf around her neck, he saw her before. She saw him, and for a moment he just watched. Not to observe, but to honor. When their eyes met, she smiled like nothing needed to be explained. You're early, she said. You're late, he replied with a soft grin. He pulled 2 cups from a paper bag he'd brought. Green jasmine for her, Earl Grey for himself. We're making this a ritual, huh? It's the best part of the day, he said. They sat on the bench again. 3rd day, same place. But this time, Keanu handed her something. A small folded paper. What's this? She asked. A reply. Keanu opened the note carefully, her eyes scanning. The first lines. He watched her closely. The way her fingers paused, the way her breath caught, and then slowly, the way she closed the paper and held it like it was made of glass. You wrote this? I needed to. She didn't speak. Not right away then. Very softly, she said, Can I keep it? Please do. I won't share it with anyone. I know. She tucked it into her coat pocket, gently, like something sacred. Keanu, she said suddenly, Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Have you ever really told your story? Like, the real one? Not the interviews? Not the press? Not the answers people expect? The real parts. The pain. The quiet. The waiting. He looked down for a long time, then finally said, I don't know if I've ever been asked the right way. I'm asking. He turned to face her. I lost people. He began, early, often, in ways that left holes I stopped trying to fill. I gave everything to my work because it was the only place people didn't walk away. But sometimes even that felt empty. The world sees strength in silence, but they don't always see the weight that comes with it. Anna's face didn't change. She just listened, fully, without flinching. I've walked into rooms where everyone smiled, but no one saw me. I've watched friends fade away, not because they meant to, but because life keeps moving. And somewhere along the way I stopped expecting anyone to stay. He paused, until this week. Anna didn't say anything. She just reached out and gently placed her hand over his. No words, just presence. He continued, I didn't know what your gift would do. I thought it would just be a kind gesture. But it opened something I had closed a long time ago. He looked at her, eyes steady but soft. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for letting me. They sat like that for a while, hands barely touching, hearts fully open. Then she leaned back and asked, Do you think silence can be love? Keanu didn't answer right away, then nodded. Yes. Sometimes it's the loudest kind. Hours passed. The sun shifted. The world moved. But Keanu and Anna stayed there long after the bench grew cold. Two people, a cup of tea, a notebook, folded quote, a small turtle, and now one handwritten note that said finally, someone saw the masterpiece and the mess and chose to stay anyway. The gift that never left Keanu Reeves stood by the window of his home a few days later, watching the late afternoon light spill across the wooden floor.
Outside.
Birds moved from branch to branch without urgency. Life was still, honest, untouched. By headlines. Inside, everything felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just lighter. On the table near the window sat a small collection of quiet things. The ceramic turtle, still chipped but full of meaning. The photo of two barefoot children, smiling in a moment that time could never take. The folded quote, now framed between glass, and the notebook. Closed, but never forgotten, next to Olive. It was a simple envelope. Anna's handwriting on the front. He hadn't opened it, yet not because he was afraid, but because something in him wanted to wait until the right moment. Today felt like that moment. He sat down slowly, pulled the envelope close, and unfolded the letter inside. Her words were short. You gave me peace when I didn't know I needed it. You made the quiet feel safe. This isn't goodbye, this is a beginning. If you ever feel invisible again, just know someone out there carries your story with care. I'm not going anywhere. Keanu closed his eyes. For years, he had been the one who gave, the one who held doors, who waited behind the scenes, who carried kindness like armor, but rarely let anyone see the weight it left behind. But in 1 week, and one forgotten birthday, someone had turned toward him instead of past him. Someone had stepped into the silence and chosen to stay. It's not out of duty, not for praise, not because Anna never asked for anything, not credit, not return. She gave, then stepped back. And somehow, that made her gift echo louder than any spotlight ever could on set. Something had shifted too. Keanu noticed how people moved differently around him now. Not because he demanded it, but because they felt it. His energy had changed. Stillness was still there, but it no longer felt like isolation. It felt like presence. And with an 8, wasn't routine anymore. It was ritual every morning. They met on the bench behind the lot. They didn't always bring tea. Sometimes they brought books, sometimes stories, sometimes nothing but themselves. On one quiet Thursday, she brought a second turtle, not ceramic, carved from wood. He looked lonely, she said, handing it to him. Keanu smiled. You keep finding the broken parts of my days. I'm just giving them company. They sat close, not touching, but with the kind of closeness that didn't need to be explained. The kind that made time slow down. Months passed. The movie wrapped. The crew moved on. Headlines changed. But the story between Keanu and Anna didn't fade. They kept in touch. Small notes, simple texts, sometimes voice messages, recorded late at night when the world was quiet and honesty could breathe. But the most important things weren't said. They were felt, and that was enough. On the anniversary of that birthday 1 year later, Keanu returned to the same spot where it all began. Early morning, same bench, same soft light. In his coat pocket was the same turtle in his hand, a thermos of green jasmine tea. He sat alone at first, just breathing. Then footsteps approached slow. Familiar Anna sat beside him without a word. In her lap was a small wrapped box. Another gift? He asked with a smirk. Not quite, she said. He opened it slowly. Inside was a photo, not an old one, a new one taken on set months ago of the two of them sitting together on that same bench. No posing, no filter. Just a moment. Someone had captured by accident. They were both laughing. Really laughing. Keanu stared at it for a long time. "I never saw this photo before," he said. "Me neither. Someone sent it to me last week. Said they found it while clearing out memory cards. Do you think they knew what it meant?" "No," Anna said, "but we do." He placed the photo beside the turtle. On the bench? "I used to think birthdays were just reminders of what was gone," he said. "Now I think maybe they're reminders of what stayed." Anna reached into her pocket and handed him one more thing. A folded note. "You are still here. You are still seen. And someone still shows up with tea, silence, and one small gift. Happy birthday, Keanu." He looked at her, really looked, and said simply thank you. She smiled always. And as the sun rose higher, they sat together again too. People, 2 turtles, a photo, a memory, and a silence that had finally become home.